Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jenny Class, the Budget Branch Manager, and we've put together a PowerPoint training for you on the local. Dr. Humbaugh has stepped in and has totally thrown me off kilter. We're here for budget training. I think Dr. Humbaugh actually wants to say something
No, that's
first.
fine. So thank you. Appreciate all of you being here and tuning into this training throughout the state. We know this is an important issue for you. We've got some great experts here, Jenny and her team, and hopefully they will be able to answer your questions if you have them after the training. We know you're anxious about the allocations. We're hoping to have those next week, and Jenny will talk a little bit more about that. But again, I just wanted to welcome you. I'm really turning it over to her, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Dr. Humbaugh. As Dr. Humbaugh said, we've got allocations. They're supposed to be ready no later than the 18th, which I believe is next Wednesday. So those will be forthcoming. You could get them a little sooner rather than later. If you all have any issues with the webinar, if you can't get logged in, go to your chat box or give us a phone call and let us know you're having trouble. This is our maiden voyage with using webinar for the Health Department budget training. So be patient with us. We're still trying to learn as well. So another thing I wanted to address was CADA is going to be doing a more specific budget training. This is going to be, what we're doing is going to be more a technical training, just going over the templates. Randy Gooch said that he sent out emails yesterday to those of you that were interested in the trainings CADA was going to conduct. There's going to be one training in the East and one in the West. If you did not get an email from Randy Gooch yesterday and you're interested in attending one of those trainings, you need to get in touch with him today so he can get you on the schedule. I think that's everything I have. I'm going to turn it over to Melissa Freeman, and she's going to take you through the rest of the session. Thank you.
We have technical difficulty. Remember, they can see you. No, we're going to take it off. Right now, I can't see anything. Oh, they can see me.
Can we move this around?
Yeah.
Oh, she's got it.
I got it
right
now.
here. She's got it. Oh, okay. She said she couldn't see it.
Well, it was blank. Okay, sorry. The screen went blank on my end, so I apologize. We will get started now. And I would like to welcome everybody to the FY17 budget training. As you know, we go through a PowerPoint that does, the do nots and the what's new for FY17. There's not much new for FY17. However, I will say that the allocations will be sent out no later than next Wednesday. But that does not mean you cannot go ahead and start working on your budget templates. That is pretty much the last part when you're doing your bud form. But you can go ahead and start looking at your service data and budgeting all of that stuff. I was told that it could be as early as this Friday, but the latest will be next Wednesday. One other thing that's new for fiscal year 17 is there will not be a 427 Department for Employee Insurance allocation this year. That was one allocation you had gotten for the past couple of years. However, with budget cuts, that will not be happening this year. And the 752 Hands General Fund Services is going to be budgeted on the supplemental template. We did not get that added last fiscal year, but it is added for this fiscal year. The Public Health Block Grant, there is funding for that this year. You have to manually enter that on the bud form in the cost centers that are in the administrative reference, as well as the budget instructions that were emailed out to everybody yesterday. So you get to pick which programs you want to use the Public Health Block Grant in. It's just allocated just for those particular cost centers that are in that list. All budgeted hands receipts must not exceed the estimated allocation. Hand services are budgeted on the supplemental template and the revenue that is budgeted will automatically feed to the budget form. So there, somebody has their volume on. So it will automatically feed over to the bud form, so you will not have to enter those allocations into the bud form because that will be based upon the services that you budgeted. And also, cost center 733, the public health dental hygiene program, are to be budgeted on the clinic template. There are a few services in the template, which was done in CDP. However, as of right now, the services that you have done in ECW are not preloaded into your budget templates. I'm going to work tomorrow to pull those services from ECW and send those out to you so you have history to help you do your budget templates. Medicaid match. The expense calculation used for the cost center 891, we have 0 match requirement in there for ACA up to December 31st. Effective January 1st, it goes to 5%. So therefore, in the budget template, we did 2.5% to calculate Medicaid match for expanded. It also addresses K-CHIP, breast and cervical cancer, and family planning. However, I learned today that K-CHIP went to 0% October 1st, 2015 through September 30th, 2019. So therefore, that change is not in the budget template. But when we get to the bud form, I will show you how you can change it if that's what you want to do. My suggestion for budgeting your Medicaid match is to use your most recent 1502 report to see how much is being calculated for each one of the categories. LHDs may not receive their FY17 payments until their budget has been received and approved by DPH and the Board of Health. This includes the receipt of board minutes noting budget approval. I will tell you that you do not have to wait until the board approves your budget before you submit it to DPH. The process of getting it approved through DPH is lengthy because not only does AFM review your budget, but program staff reviews their components of the budget too. So there's several people looking at your budget. So the sooner you can get it in, the sooner we can get it through the process. And there have been health departments who have had to make changes and had to go back to their board because there was stuff that they got approved by their board that wasn't approved by DPH. So it's very helpful if you go ahead and get that in here and let the approval process go side by side so that if there's any major changes that have to be made. Now, if you submit your budget and your board doesn't approve something in it, all you have to do is contact your local health budget financial analyst. We will assist you in making those changes and put it through the process that's necessary again if there are major changes that your board won't approve. Budgets will be due to DPH no later than June the 10th. I know that is less than 30 days from when potentially you could get your allocations. However, we are trying to get the budgets going through the process as quickly as possible, and there might be health departments who can't get it in by June the 10th, and we understand that. Just please stay into communication with your local health budget analyst so that we know what is going on with your budget and we can assist you in any means that we can. Once you have completed your budget and are ready to submit it to DPH for approval, notify your financial analyst that you have loaded it to the L drive and that it's ready for review. Yeah, if you don't have access to the L drive, there are 2 health departments that don't have access to the L drive, and we will work on getting those emailed back and forth. Some helpful hints. Reviewing the available program descriptions will assist in determining allowable expenditures for budgeting. That folder has not been put on the L drive yet. You can use what's currently out there for FY16 because as at this time, no updates have been made. If there are any updates, we will send those out and let you know. Completing AFM and program staff budget revisions upon notification will assist in the timely approval of your budget. And the health department budget should balance without using unrestricted reserves. Unrestricted reserves should be considered as a savings account and be used for one-time or unexpected expenses. There are several health departments that have plans for their excess unrestricted, and if those expenses are going to be in FY17 and you budget them, then of course you can use unrestricted. The main purpose for that statement is don't budget unrestricted to cover your 5% salary increase. That's not the main purpose that it's for. It should be for non-reoccurring expenses. Once the budget has been completed, you need to use your most current 117 report, version B, and make sure that the line items that you budget look reasonable to your most current revenue expense report, analyzing it a little bit. Your local health budget analyst will review that, and we do question it sometimes when we think some things look a little low compared to the current fiscal year or look extremely high. And we're not saying you have to change it. We're just saying that's something that jumped out at us and asking you to take a second look at it. The Public Health Block Grant references the budget manual for the appropriate cost centers, like I've already said. And when balancing the budget using restricted or unrestricted reserves, if you're going to do that, then you need to make sure and look at your current year's financials to make sure that those reserves, whether they're restricted or unrestricted, are not needed for fiscal year 16. Because if you budget them for 17, then but you use it for 16, you're not going to have those funds available to use in FY17 because they'll be gone. This is the budget process flow. As you can see, we put the budgets on the L drive and then you all download them and then you all work on them. Then you all put them back on the L drive and your local health budget analyst will completely review your budget and look for certain things that are commonly mistakes that health departments make in their budget and make sure that everything balances. Once your local health budget analyst has completed their review, most likely they will send it back to you and you will need to make changes. Please make those changes as quickly as possible and resubmit them. If you need assistance in making those changes, your local health budget analyst will be more than happy to assist you. And then resubmit it. They re-review it. And then once it's approved by your local health budget analyst, they will send it to program staff. The budget goes to all 5 different divisions. We send it at one time and everybody is looking at it at the same time. We do give them a time frame to review your budget and we expect them to make their reviews we give them like 3 to 5 days to review their budget depending on what level of the review it's at. Once they have completed their reviews, your local health budget analyst will send you any requests for revisions that program staff has. You all will make the changes and resubmit it, and then we send that back to the program staff for review. Once everybody has signed off on it, it comes back to your local health budget analyst. Your local health budget analyst will do another review to make sure that nothing got messed up drastically through the whole review process. And then once we get that review done and we have your board minutes, you will get a letter saying that your budget is approved. This kind of tells you what the different colors in the templates mean. The biggest one is if it's yellow, you're allowed to enter something in there. If it's white, or gray. Don't enter anything in there is the big things. If you see red, that means there's an error somewhere. If you can't figure out what that error is, contact your local health budget analyst and we will work with you to get that corrected. Here's a list of each health department and who has that health department, who your local health budget analyst is. So it has not changed since the last one that went out, so I'm sure most of you know who is your contact. To reiterate when to contact your local health budget analyst is if you have any technical or programming budget problems, once you've completed your budget and submitted it on the L Drive, and once you have completed your revisions. It's very important that once you load it to the L Drive that you email your local health budget analyst, because we don't go looking for them. We've had issues in the past where health departments said, well, I put it on the L Drive 2 weeks ago, but they never emailed us. So that was 2 weeks that we could have been reviewing it and we didn't know it was out there. So please, 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 once you put it on the L Drive, email us so we know it's out there. And of course, anytime you have any questions, you can either pick up the phone or email us. I will tell you that email is the easiest because it could be an issue that all 4 of us is having and we can solve it at one time. When you submit your budget, this is what you should include. If you've had your board minute meeting, please submit your board minutes. If not, submit them as soon as possible. You can either email them to us or you can save them on the L Drive in your budget folder. The counties that do not have a taxing district, you need to submit your CH-31s showing what the city fiscal court or the city council has agreed to give you for FY17. And if you've made special arrangements with program staff, please forward those emails to us too, because if a program allocates you $10,000 on your estimated allocation, but after communication with them, they say, we're going to give you $15,000 instead, your local health budget analyst is going to deny it unless we know that they've agreed to give you an extra $5,000. So that will help prevent the process from slowing down if you keep us informed of everything that's going on. The do nots. I know this is everybody's favorite part because it's the same every year. Do not open all templates at one time. If you do, because they're all connected, it causes REFs. If for some reason you open your salary and your bud form at the same time and you get REFs in your bud form, please contact us and we can fix it. It's a whole lot better if you just don't open them up at the same time. We haven't figured out why that happens, but it causes issues because where they're linked together. Do not sort data on any templates unless there's a sort button. The only 2 templates that have a sort button are the clinic and the RadLab Path. Don't delete rows and don't insert rows. And the main reason for that is we load your budgets into CDP. So if you've deleted row or inserted a row, the template that we use to load will not load correctly and the budget on your financials will not be accurate. Do not hide columns and or rows because that can throw your balances off if you do that. Do not copy and paste on templates. Do not delete in a cell. Always use clear contents if you're going to clear what's in that cell. And please do not delete any formulas. If you delete a formula, it could have a domino effect and affect more than one thing. So we're asking that you please don't delete formulas. If for some reason you do delete a formula, please notify us immediately so we can get that fixed for you because everything's fixable. It's just we're trying to help prevent us having to delay your budgets from being approved. Do not use cut function when copying templates from the L Drive. We like to keep the original template that's out there until you copy something over, so that we're not having to rebuild them from scratch. So if you use the cut function from the L drive instead of the copy function, then if something happens to your templates and we have to rebuild them, then we have to start all over from scratch. And it takes, well, to do all 61 of them, it took us a couple of days to get them all completed. So it's a little time consuming. I'm going to, in the PowerPoint shows you how to copy the budget folder from the L drive to the C drive, because there are people that struggle with that. I'm not going to go over all of that, but we keep it in the PowerPoint so that you have it as a reference for when you're copying your templates to and from the L drive. And then when you copy them back to the L drive, we have several health departments who end up double stacking. We're not sure which one's the accurate one. So if you have problems copying your budget to and from the L drive, please let us know. This is the budget template links. It kind of explains how the budgets, what templates are connected to each other. Everything is pretty much connected to the Bud form, and then Bud form feeds to everything else. So they're all connected back and forth. They're not all connected to each other except for the Bud form, but they're all feeding information back and forth. And then this is how to link the templates. I'm not going to really go over that, but once you copy your budgets from the L drive, you need to make sure that they're linked to each other and not linked to a version that's on the L drive. You want it linked to the version that's on your working computer. And then how to save the templates too. I'm not really going to go over that either, but it's in the PowerPoint, so you have it as a reference to go over. Reasons for denials in prior years. Because the Medicare and the self-pay and the insurance are not calculated on the Clinic and Rad Lab Pass, some health departments forget to budget those on the Bud form. You are going to have to manually budget those for you. The services that are budgeted on the Clinic and Rad Lab Pass do not automatically calculate that for you. Not entering square footage for all cost centers with salary and vice versa. I will say another thing on that too is your square footage tab will not work properly until you've completed the salary template. And the salary template will not work properly until you enter pay rates on the salary template. Sometimes we get phone calls from health departments saying, I'm not showing any salary expense. And when we look at it, it's just because they didn't enter their pay rates. We enter everything else for you as far as history is concerned with the health department, the employees' names and stuff, but we don't have access to pay rates, so we don't enter that portion for you. So you will need to put
environmental template. Nothing will carry over until their salary.
Right, and your environmental template won't carry over to the Bud form either until you put salary in. So salary is one of where the most cost is, so it's probably the first one that you need to complete. Another reason for denial is if you don't enter your number of establishments on the environmental template, so make sure you enter those. And on the Clinic and Rad Lab Path, there's a mandatory tab to make sure you budget all those services too. Some of them are mandatory even if you don't historically do them. According to the federal grant, you still have to budget for them. A big one is WIC services. Somehow WIC services get put under Medicaid or self-pay. You need to make sure that everything that's in Cost Center 804, which I'm going to show you a quick way to do that when we go over that template, make sure they're all project eligible. And make sure that all your contract, on your contract template, have a contract ID number and that minor object is allowable for that cost center. I'm going to kind of go over split grants. In some instances, this is kind of going away. We don't have as many as we used to. But on your estimated allocation, if it's a split grant, it's going to have parentheses over to the side that says July through December is this amount and January through June is this amount if it's a calendar year split grant. If it's a federal fiscal year split grant, it's going to have, like WIC is, which is, one of your big ones. It's going to have, this is how much you can spend from July through September, and this is how much you can spend in October to June. When you do your budget, you're going to put the full amount in your budget. But in actuality, when it comes to spending those funds, you're only going to get paid this, the smaller amount for July through September and the bigger amount for October through June. So in the planning process, you need to really take that into consideration. This shows you how to get access to the L Drive. Hopefully everyone already has access to the L Drive, but this is for future reference if you ever need to get somebody access to the L Drive. And I see some of you have already found the chat. I forgot to mention that earlier. So we, after each thing, we are going to, after each template, I will look at the questions thing and answer them all at once. The only question I have is somebody is thanking us for switching to the GoToWebinar. They say it's much better quality, so thank you. We appreciate that. We're glad we tried this. Okay, now to get started.
So you're going to tell them that you're saving questions till the end of each step. Okay, sorry.
And I'll reiterate that if you have questions, go ahead and send them while you're thinking of them. However, I will not be checking the question chat tab until after I have finished going over that template. Okay. Okay, the first one is the environmental template, and I'm going to go over each tab and explain to you what each tab means and where you need to enter information in. We have already loaded your year-to-date through March services that were in the EMIS system. We get it from Datamart. So you already have information in there to help and assist you in preparing your budget. And all that information feeds into column E in the green. It does not annualize it for you. It is just what is in there for the first 9 months. We use a standard of 20% for follow-up inspection and 10% for complaints. However, those cells are yellow, so therefore if you feel that you need to change those percentages, and you can, and environmental will review it and to see if they determine that that is accurate. If you have numbers in the green and the white cells, it will automatically calculate a budget for you. The yellow cells, you have to enter services for you. Sometimes that's been confusing in the past. They think if there's a number in the green, it automatically feeds over, and it does not. So as you can see in this cell right here, there's 10 services. If that's how many you're going to budget, then you would have to enter a 10 in there. However, this 5 services is calculating too because I haven't entered in my establishment. So if I put it in a 10, it's going to change it. We'll change it to 50. Because it calculates based upon your establishments. This one changed to 50 based upon the number of establishments that I've entered in. And then down at the bottom, and as I said, you have to have expenses in the BUD form and you have to have salary flow into the BUD form for this to actually work. But at the bottom, these two amounts should balance. If it's not, it will turn red. And another thing that you can look at too is this amount based upon the standard hours that environmental has chosen for each service can kind of tell you how many employees you need in environmental. So that's another key thing. It'll be by hours. So if it's more than 1950, then you need more than one full-time person. Okay, that is all that I have for the environmental. It's pretty easy. And everything, and there are no questions. So we will move on to contracts. You will always get the enable content when you open up. Sometimes you'll get a do you trust this document? Please say yes, because if you say no, it messes up the templates. So please trust that this document is from a good source. The contract, you can sort on this one. It has sort buttons, but you would enter in your contract ID, which always begins with a 2. You put in your contract provider. We'll use Dr. Humbaugh since, he's sitting in here today. And then your cost center. He used to be a pediatrician, so we'll say pediatrics. And a physician. As I said before, keying in the yellow. The white automatically populated once I put in the 201 minor object. So we got a general physician that's not an OBGYN for there, and then we put in our contract amount. This contract amount feeds over to this tab, as you can see, in Cost Center 800. There's my $200, and this feeds over into the BUD form. But since I don't have the BUD form open right now, it's not going to fix. But once this feeds to the BUD form and I update the BUD form, it will have a $200 here as well, and it will feed over, which I'm going to show you that will work here in just a minute. So you enter in all your contracts for every program that you need a contract for, and you also need to enter whether or not you're going to be responsible for third-party billing or the contractor is going to be responsible. So we'll say that Dr. Humbaugh is going to be responsible. So that works. There's also a table that shows each cost center and each minor object to show you for that cost center what allowable. So I use 201, and this shows me that for cost center 800, 201 is an allowable contract. You also have mandatory contracts that you have to do. So you need to make sure that these get done if you don't. So we're going to put in one of the mandatory contracts because you see they're all red right at this moment. So we'll do Dr. White. 13 for breast and cervical cancer, and 205 for anesthesiologist services, and we'll do $200 on that one as well. As you can see, what was red before is now turned white saying contracted. That means you have added that contracted services. However, if for some reason you feel you don't need that contracted service to budget for that service, there is a comments column over here. Say you don't want to do the OBGYN services because you're not doing the maternity program in your health department. So you need to put over here to assure that you are having those services provided in your health department, you can say that FQHC is providing services in my county. So that when the maternity program reviews your budget, they can ask questions based upon that comment instead of just denying it because you didn't budget that mandatory contract service. Okay, so I'm going to close this and save it. And then I'm going to open the bud form. And you see my $200 is right there for my 800. There's my $200 for my 813, my $200 for my 800. So once I close this and open my contracts back up and hit update, you can see that my $400 is in my purple cell and my red cell has disappeared because what is on my bud form matches what's on my contract template. So that is all I have for contracts. And there currently are no questions. So I'm going to move on to the clinic template. Okay, the first tab is your unduplicated patient count. There are some programs that use this information for applying for their federal grants, so please fill it out accordingly. There are reports out there that you can use. I think it's the 135 unduplicated patient count, where you can kind of gauge using that one to determine what your unduplicated patient count is for each one of the clinical cost centers. So please make sure you fill that one out. That's another reason why we send them back, because people forget to fill that one out.
That should be anticipated numbers of services.
And you can use current year data. Dr. Humbaugh asked if that was estimated, and that is an estimated amount. You just need to kind of use this fiscal year to kind of determine that. You can even use last fiscal year's numbers because you have a whole year's worth of data. It's just whatever you feel comfortable with. Okay, here is the service tab where you key everything in. There is through March 31st information that is filled in. The service data is coming from the Data Mart tab, where we have loaded all of your year-to-date through March 31st services for all of your clinical cost centers. It gets fed over to the services tab, and you can either put a 1 in here, which changes this budget column to nothing, to where you have to enter everything in the yellow, or you can put a 2 in this yellow cell, and it will change everything in the budget column to what the same number is in the green column, which would only be 9 months worth of services. Or you can put a 3 in here, and it will take the information that's in the green cell and annualize it based upon 9 months worth of services. That's the option that I would use. There are most health departments use that option because it kind of gives you better of a picture where you'll be at the end of the year. However, I would look at each cost center. You can filter the cost centers. You know, here's 712, and make sure there's not any CPTs that, you know, make sure all of these are Ds for 712, because that's dental codes all begin with a D. If you have the public health dental hygienist program, there's 733 information that you did for CDP in the CDP system will be in there. Also make sure all of those are Ds. And here's the trick for 804. Filter it to 804. You have 20,776 budgeted. So now you scroll over here to project and make sure that under project you have the same amount budgeted. If that number is different, then you've got something budgeted under a different category. And it can happen on accident and it's easy to fix. Just go into the yellow cell that has a budget number and hit it 0, and whatever you key in the yellow cell automatically overrides what's in the white cell. So this one didn't have that example in there because all of them are under project eligible, but that's how you fix that. You also have mandatory CPTs. As you can see, some of these already have been changed to plant. However, if you need to add, so we'll add a diaphragm for 802, you can go to the Data Mart tab, and you can do this 2 different ways. You can scroll down to the bottom of the Data Mart tab, type in new 802. It won't automatically put in 99, and then the CPT or whatever provider class you're going to use for that. And your CPT and one total, and it's going to be a self-pay. You can't just enter a 1 in the total column because you have to pick one of the payer sources to do it in. So how many ever you're going to do, you can enter in the total column, but you still have to allocate it between the different payer sources. So if you go back to your services tab and we filter this to 802, so we don't have to scroll to the bottom, it will show up at the bottom. There it is. 4266, one service budgeted as self-pay. We go to our mandatory CPT and it changed it from red to plant. So that's one way of doing it. The other way is to go back to the Data Mart tab and you can click this enter new record or manage existing record and you get a pop-up box. You click new and then you fill in the pop-up box. And we'll do another one to show you how to do this one. You type in new for HID. $802 for the cost center. And A4267, 1 and 1. And then close. So we go back over here. We're going to refilter this. And there's your A4267 at the bottom. And then you go to your mandatory CPT tab. And that one was already on there. I should have put A4269. So it just added another one there. I had my wrong numbers on there. But it'll, once you do that. Okay, I will tell you that for the anesthesiology, for breast follow-up, and for cervical follow-up, the leading numbers for those are zeros. So on the Data Mart tab, when you scroll to the bottom, page down might be faster. once you make a change to it, I forgot this part. If you go under review, it has locked it up. I'm not having much luck with Excel today. We'll do it this way. Well, you have to unprotect the sheet once you add a service to it. For some reason, a minute ago, it wouldn't let me do that. But in front of the 400, you need to put a single quote, 00400, or it won't feed over there to the services tab. That's the way to get the ones that actually begin with a 0 to feed over to the services tab. All the rates have been updated according to the preventive fee schedule, and for Medicaid and for Passport, and all of the RVs have been updated as well. So that is all for the clinic template. And we still have no questions. That's good. Either I've put you to sleep or
Trained well.
I don't know. We're going to go over the RadLab Path right quick before we take a break. RadLab Path is just like the clinic template. It's no different at all. All the information gets preloaded that's through March 31st. It feeds over to the services tab. There's a mandatory CPT as well, and the rates and LRVs have been updated also. You do need to look at this one also and make sure for 804 that everything is budgeted under project eligible. And we got an example here. The total budget is $2,392, but there's only $2,390 in project eligible. So if you look, so there's two different. There's one in insurance, as you can see right here. So if you put a 0 right there, it zeroes it out. And we got another one somewhere else. Under Medicare, you zero it out. So now our total should match the 2,390. So you got an example on how to fix that. But for every cost center, I would filter and look at each cost center individually to make sure there's not data in there that you shouldn't be budgeting for, because program staff is going to do that. They look and filter it and make sure that you're budgeting for the services that are for their program. Okay, that's all I have for the RadLab Path, and we have a question. The question is, have the CPTs been corrected with the RVs on the April general ledger? They are updated in the system, and we are currently working with CDP to get the files fixed to where you all can close April, is what I believe she's referring to. So all the RVs are correct in the budget templates, and the RVs have been updated into the system. And so as soon as I hear back from CDP that you all can run your April financials, I will let you know. They're having to run a few update files to get that corrected. Okay, we are back. I hope everybody had a nice break. So now we're going to start with the salary template. If you get this edit links, always click on it to make sure that your budget is linked to whatever drive that you are working from. So if you're working from a C drive or you're working from a drive that's at your health department, you need to always make sure that everything's linked to that drive. This is currently on a flash drive, which is on my E drive, so that's why it has E. So when you copy them over, you can check the L drive as well. So that's linked good. The first tab, you will need to enter in the yellow cells, as we said before. Your health insurance, what your rate per employee is for just the month. Everything in the white cells automatically feeds over once you've completed all the other tabs. You need to key in your unemployment insurance, and if your agency pays for dental insurance for your employees, you need to key that amount in. These are annual amounts. And then, of course, for flexible benefits for Coffee Tree. And then if your employee...
Those are in from your worksheet. And those.
Yeah. The yellow cells you can override. However, there's a worksheet at the end that you can use to help calculate what those are. This was shared with us from one of the health departments, and so you can use this spreadsheet and it'll automatically feed over there. However, if you don't want to use that worksheet, you don't have to, and you can manually feed this in based upon what you all want. Also, remember, you got to put in the pre-tax deductions for the employee side as well. We have preloaded on these refresh tabs through March full-time hours and part-time hours. And they feed over into the full-time hours and part-time hours tab. The number of pay periods has been entered for you, which is 19 through March. So everything that is budgeted in these cost centers is annualized based upon 19 pay periods. As you can see, if in column G, you have employees that are budgeted less than 1,200 hours, it turns them red. Some of it could mainly be because that person retired at the beginning of the fiscal year. So if, for say, that person retired at the beginning of the fiscal year, you need to click on that row and then right click and click clear contents. Do not use delete. By doing that, we'll get rid of that employee and all the hours that were budgeted for that employee. So for every one of them that you don't want on the list, you need to do that for them. If you need to add anybody, you just add them at the bottom. And then you put their hours wherever you want them budgeted for. And keep on going across. The yellow cells do have formulas in them for where the information is coming from the refresh tabs, but you can change it. So if, for say, this person is going to do 1,200 hours in 853, you can change it. And if you still want them to be 1950, then you just take hours from someplace, change. Probably this way. You can change their leave hours. to get it to all the balance 1950. Now, when you're doing leave hours, it's whatever your agency wants to put for leave hours. If you know somebody's going on maternity leave and is going to use more than the traditional 297 hours that most of them budget for, then, you know, go ahead and budget that. If you know somebody's going to retire and they're going to, you know, pay out all their sick time, then budget the hours that you're going to end up paying out, because that will calculate that expense in your budget. Now, your leave hours, as we said before, the white cells have formulas in them. You don't want to enter anything in there. So the leave hours will automatically go into the appropriate category based upon the number of the number of hours you have budgeted for that category. So if most of your time is in 700, then your leave time is going to go into the clinic. If you're a hands employee and most of your time is in 853, then your leave time is going to go into medical. It automatically will calculate it for you. However, if you do 50-50 someplace, it's going to it's going to get it all confused. So you really have to have 1 hour more in one particular category if you're in cost centers that can have leave coming from 2 different categories. So if you have that issue, just let us know and we'll try to help you figure it out. But for the most part, that doesn't usually happen. Occasionally it does. As we said before, you don't get any expenses in the template until you put in a pay rate. So we'll put $5 for everybody, even though we know everybody's getting more than that, just to round it off. Okay, you can copy and paste this down. I'm just doing it for show right now. Now you can see where the budgeted salary is in there, and this feeds over to this full-time salary tab, which then feeds over to this salary spread tab, and which feeds into the bud form. Now, there are red right here, and we really don't like red. However, as long as the amount here and here match, or the main reason why it's red is rounding, because as you can see, this is 87,690 in column E, and then this one in column G on row 14 is 87,689. The red is because of the rounding. Now, if there's more than a rounding difference in that cell, then there is an error. If you all can't figure out what the error is, you're more than welcome to contact your local health budget analyst, and we will try to figure out what is going on. But all of the expenses on this tab will feed over to the bud form. So I'm going to save this so we can show that to you in a minute. The same for the input part-time hours. You can put in your pay rates. Everybody in this health department makes $5 an hour. And it will feed in. You can change your hours in the yellow, but I will advise you to scroll over to the leave and make sure that there's not any leave hours that flowed in. And if there are, you need to zero those out, because there shouldn't be any leave hours on the part-time tab. Now, another thing to remember too when you're doing your salary template is 1,200 hours or more are on the full-time tab, and $11.99 and below are on the part-time tab. So everything on the part-time tab feeds over to this budget part-time tab, and then it all feeds to the salary spread, where you can see how it all spreads out. I'm going to save this. Let me go over the other template tabs. The FY17 pay period schedule is also on this template, so you will have that for reference for next fiscal year. And then, of course, you have these leave spreads, which are just there to help us with the leave spread calculation. And then I had already gone over the employee benefit worksheet. So I'm going to close this and then show you how the salary feeds over to the BUD form. Now you can see in rows 12 through 14 how your salary fed over to the BUD form. And always check to make sure that the amounts that are in column D match the totals that are on your salary template. Then you'll know that there's no issues with it feeding over. Okay, that is all I have for the salary template. So I'm going to, there is a question. The question is, do we need to list employees that we are hiring in the next month but will not begin until budget deadline? If they're going to be on the FY17 budget, then they need to be added. Even if you don't know the name of the person, then you can put hands coordinator or you can put clinic nurse, whatever their position is going to be, add that on there. So any employee or vacant position that you know you're going to fill in FY17 needs to be added on the salary template. The next question is, I have a full-time employee set to retire as of 7/31/16. She's taking leave time for all of July, 150 hours. Should she be entered on the full-time or the part-time? She needs to be entered on the full-time, and yes, we know that that will be less than 1,200 hours. However, you will put a comment on the salary template, and I will show you how to do that. So say that this person with 339 hours is retiring, and so that's how much they're going to be budgeted for. So you would just right click on that box, click insert comment, and put employee is retiring 7/31/16. And then we will know why you only have that many hours budgeted for that. So if there's any other issues like that, say an employee doesn't have any leave time, however, you know they're going to be taking 12 weeks of maternity leave, that can reduce their hours to less than 1,200 hours. Then you need to make that note as well, just in case.
Anything that's on full-time that's less than 1,200 hours.
Yeah. Anything on the full-time tab that's less than 1,200 hours needs to have a comment.
It will save you.
It saves time when processing the budget review, and it doesn't hold up your budget with us having to ask the questions. So that answers both of those questions. So we will move on to the supplemental template. Okay, the supplemental template is where you will budget all of your hand services, whether you have the formula hands program, or you have the competitive hands program, or just the traditional 853 for Medicaid and non-Medicaid. The hands program staff has given us services through March 31st, so we have loaded those in there. And on the refresh tab, it shows what you have done so far this fiscal year, and it feeds over to the input tab. In the green is year-to-date numbers, and then in column F is the annualized numbers based upon 9 months worth of data. You can change these numbers to whatever you want them to be. Say for this one service, you're going to do 1,200 instead of 1,127. So you key it in and it recalculates your amount. Say on this one, everybody should be getting an allocation for the general fund HANDS program that is started this last fiscal year. However, this health department didn't have any services so far, so you want to add that one. So you would do 752. However, before you put the 752 in, you need to do a single quote. And then you can put the cost center name, which is HANDS General Fund. And then your CPT. I'll just use the one right above it. And 5 services. And now I have a budgeted amount in cost center 752. I'm going to go ahead and add one for 767 on this template also, so that we can go look at it on the BUD form. So as I said before, when you're adding a service, you do this thing. There are formulas already in these cells, so you're going to override these formulas. If it's a yellow cell, it's okay to override formulas. It's the white and gray cells that we don't want you overriding formulas. I know I've said that many times, but I just like to reiterate. So you put your single quote, as you can see up here, 767. This is the competitive. We'll use this. Those are the G's. Put 10 services, and now you can see I now have budgeted in 767. Okay, I'm going to save this and close this. And you can see, like, I have $800 in 752. And these amounts up here will automatically feed over to the BUD form. So I'm going to open the BUD form. This kind of shows you how everything feeds into the BUD form. Scroll down here to revenue. Go to 752. There's my $800 that I just had on my supplemental template. It automatically feeds over. So if your allocation for 752 is $900, but you only budgeted $800 worth of services, you're not going to key in your $900. You're going to let it stay. If you want that to change to $900, then you need to go add services on the supplemental template. Here's 760. You got $233,320. That's what we had on our supplemental template. But say my allocation is only $230,000. Well, then don't change this to $230,000. Go back to the supplemental template and reduce your services to get it to $230,000. Do I have to budget exactly $230,000? No. Mathematically, you would have to come up with a formula and try to figure it all out on how many services, because you got 110, 160, and 170 as your 150, 160 reimbursement. And so, you know, you would really have to play with it for each one category to get it to come out exactly. We're just saying get it as close as possible. So if that's what you're going to do. However, If you have an allocation of $230,000 and you know your budgeted services are correct and it only adds up to $200,000, then only budget $200,000. So we just want your budget to be as close to accurate as possible. But we're just trying to explain to not key in hands allocations to the BUD form. Let the supplemental calculate it for you. There's $767 where I added those services, $1,100. And then what everybody's used to is the $853. There's the $46,000 for non-Medicaid and the $297,000 for Medicaid. The supplemental does it all for you. You don't have to do anything except budget your services and then compare it to your allocations. I would, before I even close my supplemental, look at my allocations and see what they are and get it to calculate for you that way. So you're not having to go back and forth, because whatever's on your supplemental is what's going to be in the BUD form. Okay, we are done with supplemental and we have a question. Okay, this one's back to the salary. I didn't see this one a minute ago, so we'll go ahead and answer it. If we had someone retire in FY16 but have not yet received the KRS bill, how do we budget for that in FY17?
Well, you know how many hours we're going to have.
You know how many hours that you're going to have for the FY17 bill, so just go ahead and budget those hours
How many hours
for the
they
sick.
accumulated.
Yeah, for the sick that you're going to pay retirement, just go ahead and budget those sick hours on the salary template and just put that comment in there. Say budgeted June 2016, sick hours being paid to retirement in FY17. Okay, for hands, can we still go a percentage over the allocations? Do we need to contact program staff? No, you cannot go over the percentage allocated. You have to stay at or under your allocation. However, with any allocation, you are more than welcome to contact program staff and see if they will increase your allocation. However, in order for that allocation to be increased on your budget, you have to share that communication with your local health budget analyst. And the communication needs to be in writing. It does not need to be a verbal communication. So, you know, don't call your local health budget analyst and say, so-and-so in the HANDS program said I can increase my allocation by $20,000. You need to forward us the email showing the written approval to do that. Okay. That's all the questions for hands. And just like we had that salary question after the fact, that's fine. If you have a question for a previous template, when we go to the questions, we will look at those as well because they come in the order. Okay. I know this does not apply to everybody, but we will go over it quickly. That way the home health people can see. There is nothing preloaded in the home health template. Therefore, you will have to put in your services for each cost center yourself, and it will calculate everything for you based upon what you do. So we will put in some services here so we can show you how it And then the home health agencies also have to put in their reimbursement rate per discipline. It used to be a set amount. However, Medicaid has now been changing that a little bit. So you all can put in your reimbursement rate based upon what Medicaid is paying you. I think they've been trying to change your reimbursement to your cost per service on your most recent cost settlement report. So since we're only doing, we'll just do 5 here too. I like nice round numbers when we're You can also put your administrative charge, because you all have been billed for those quarterly. And the provider tax will automatically calculate based upon the Medicaid receipts. For this example, it's $3. So we will save this and go to the BUD form. I only did 861, so it'll only show up in 861. As you can see, it showed up for each one of those payers. 5 services times $5 is $25. So all of that feeds over for you. And the insurance as well. I only did the Medicaid services. So you will have to do that for each one of the home health cost centers. If you have any additional questions, I know there was a question in the instruction booklet. It had a report number to get you your episodes and stuff. I have a call into CDP because evidently that report that we have in the instructions is no longer valid, and I've had a call into CDP and I have not heard back from them to see if there's a new report number that will give you your number of episodes. So once I hear back from them, I will let all the home health agencies know. Okay, well, we already have the BUD form open. That's all for home health. So we will get to the BUD form. All right, the first tab, already some of it is pre-filled in here, but before you submit it, you need to change this N to a Y if you're submitting your board minutes. And if you're not submitting your board minutes, you need to keep it an N for no. And then you need to put in the date of your board meeting. Majority of you all will submit it before your board meeting. So you will submit it with a no, and you will say, okay, my board meeting's on June 15th. So that way we know that you haven't already had your board meeting, and we know not to ask for your board minutes until after June 15th. If your agency is lucky enough to receive an increment this fiscal year, whatever that increment will be, you need to enter that into, whether it's 3% or 5%. So we're going to say y'all are getting a 3% raise, so you'll enter in 3%. If for some reason your agency isn't given a raise, then you just leave it at 0%. But please make sure you update that. On the Input Local Receipts tab, we have already preloaded what your 1.8 minimum requirement is. If you are a district, we have listed each county and put what the 1.8 minimum requirement is. This does not feed over to the BUD form, so therefore you will have to put in the amount that you are going to that each taxing district is going to contribute. So if you're a taxing district county and they're going to give you $100,000, then you key that in, and this will change from red to white, saying that you budgeted more than your 1.8. However, if for some reason they say they're only going to give you $500,000, which this will show that they have to give you extra money. So you need to make sure that they give you at least your 1.8 minimum requirement, if I can put enough zeros in here. Now, if you are a CH31 county and you get money from the fiscal court, then you will budget your money in 452. If the city council gives you funding, then you will budget that in 453. No matter which one you key it into, it will all feed over into the BUD form and on each appropriate line. Why do I have to Okay, so you keyed in your local receipts. The next thing you need to do is you need to go into your input square footage tab. And you need to put in, calculate how much square footage your agency has. If you're a district, then it's all your buildings combined. If you're just a single county with one building, then it's just that one building. So say they have 50,000 square feet. So now I have to go down here, and everywhere as I have salary, I need to put in square feet equaling up to 50,000. I'm just entering numbers to get it to work. See, here I did that on accident, but I'll show you. I entered 60,000, so I'm way over the amount of my total square footage. So this is all red, and that's at 129%. Your goal is to get this to 100%. So I accidentally on purpose did that. So everywhere it says enter square footage, you need to enter some kind of square footage. Now, in these 870 cost centers, if it's a pass-through employee and you don't want to enter square footage because that employee actually works up here in our building, don't put square footage, but to get rid of that to where this will all change colors, you need to change this to a Y. That says that's a pass-through employee and I don't need to assign square footage to that. Okay, now I see my 50,000 equals my 50,000. However, my red square over here is 99.6%. And that's because I got 200 hours entered on the line that does not say enter square footage. So if I delete that, of course it's still red, but that's because I have to add my 200 square feet somewhere else. And now, if you have everything entered on the appropriate line and these two squares balance, everything will turn to gray and you will not have red in there. So that is very, very important to make sure that you have that done. And of course, all of this feeds over to this line 144. So everything that you calculated on that input square footage tab comes over here and allocates to the expenses to the appropriate cost center. If you notice when I was looking at the local tax dollars down here, there was a bunch of division by zeros at the bottom. Well, that's because I hadn't entered my square footage yet. So if you get a bunch of division by zeros when you're trying to balance your bud form, it's because most likely it's because you haven't entered in your square footage. So that's very, very important. Before I go over more of that input bud form tab, I want to go over the 3 tabs over here that are gray. Of course, everything that you put on your input bud form tab feeds over to the summary of all programs. It's automatically calculated. This is a good tool if you want to present this to your board. Some boards just want simple, plain, and easy, and this is very simple, plain, and easy because you just print it. You have the plan tab. Everything that we've done on the clinic template and on the RadLab Path template and on the HANDS template for Medicaid feeds over to this plan tab for you. It feeds over your services. Now, if you have certain programs that Medicaid or Passport deny, you can reduce your Medicaid receipts by the percentage that you put in here because of the denial rate. It's not mandatory that you use that, but it's there if you want to do that. That's the easiest way to reduce your Medicaid receipts, is to put in a percentage of denial. Also on this plan tab is calculates your Medicaid match. Family planning and breast and cervical cancer are automatically loaded in there for you, and everything goes to traditional preventive Medicaid. However, if you have K-CHIP, you can change the amount. So say $50,000 is K-CHIP. You would change that $50,000 and this traditional preventive reduced. You have $100,000 of expanded preventive. Now, I will tell you that earlier I said that K-CHIP went to 0. We did not know that when we first built these budget templates. So if you're going to use this to calculate your preventive Medicaid match, you need to change this to 0. That's all you have to do. Just put a 0 in place of that 20.71 and it will calculate 0% of K-CHIP. Not all health departments have K-CHIP and not all health departments calculate their preventive Medicaid match using this. As you can see, expanded preventive has 2.5%, and the reason is because at January 1st, your expanded will be matched at 5%. So we just decided the easiest way would be to calculate everything you put in expanded at 2.5%, and hopefully that would cover it. But that feeds over to the bud form when you calculate your Medicaid match. You also have your indirect spread tab. If you wanted to look and see what your percentages of indirect, this is just how it all feeds to the bud form, which the bud form is the nuts and bolts of your budget. I've already shown you where the salary feeds over and where contracts feeds over. Everything that has a yellow cell on all these other categories for your expenses like travel, space cost, office operations, medical supplies, you have to key those in. Now, I will remind you that for space costs, the majority of those expenses need to be keyed into 897. And keying those into 897 spreads your space cost expense. Until you have a space cost expense in there, which this health department did because they have salary expense for their janitor. But you've got to put in your space cost expenses in cost center 897 for it to spread with the square footage. So make sure that you do that. You budget all your other expenses, and I would really use your most current revenue and expense report to determine how to budget your expenses in all of those yellow cells to make sure that you are, compare it to this fiscal year to make sure you're on track. Then you have your revenue. These categories up top is where you'll key in your allocations. Now, you are getting retirement funds again this year. And that retirement receipt gets keyed in to 895. And as you can see, there's currently, before I key it in, there's no expenses in cost center 895 as of right now. But once I key in that allocation for the retirement in 895-426, it creates an expense. It's going to isolate the expense of retirement to cost center 895 because we're providing the funds to cover that increase in the retirement expense. And then after I get done with this, I'm going to save this and I will show you how that amount feeds over into the salary template so that you know that it's reducing it on there as well. Yeah. And as soon as you get your allocations, that one allocation, I would go ahead and key in, especially if you're looking at salary expense because, you know, salary rate went up to 48.9 something percent. It's in the salary template correctly. And if you don't have that allocation put in, you're going to think your expenses are way more than what they actually are going to be for you because of the reimbursement of those funds. But you put in all of your allocations, and then for the receipts that you get outside of us, you'll have to key those receipts in too. The 427 is still on the template. However, please do not budget anything on that line. You got your 428. You just, wherever there's a yellow cell, that's an allowable cost center to put your money in. You can always look at this total line to see, you know, when you meet your allocation amount. As we said earlier, the local tax dollars come from this tab over here, the input local receipts, and they will automatically spread. Now, if you want to key in your local tax dollars, say this $4,500 is for a specific program, you put in a 0 and it won't automatically spread. So in the yellow, say it's for pediatrics. So you want to put your $4,500 there, you just do it in the yellow cell, then everything balances. Now, if you want to use the automatic spread for your local tax dollars, but you say, okay, my board says that I can't put any local tax dollars in nutrition, so you would do minus 4,329, and as you can see, it don't balance. So you would have to come over here and say, okay, I'm going to put that money into TB instead. So you would do a positive 4,329, and it makes it all balance. So there's, you know, red is all gone over here. So you can do that. Do the automatic spread and then subtract and add, and then it'll tell you if you're balancing. Now, we talked about unrestricted earlier. We have loaded in there what your unrestricted balance was as of 3/31. However, we highly suggest you try to balance your budget without using unrestricted, unless, of course, you have a one-time expense where, you know, you are building a new building or you're buying new cars for your program. Then you can use your unrestricted reserves for that, and you can, you know, key those in accordingly. We're just trying to suggest that you don't use your unrestricted to lean on to give everybody a raise, because that unrestricted might not be there in the following years to cover that raise that you just gave everybody. So just be very conscientious and make sure that you don't need that unrestricted, because a lot of health departments' unrestricted balances are going low. So make sure you're not going to need that unrestricted to cover FY16, because I would really hate for you to depend on it for FY17 but then not have it when FY17 rolls around. There are questions on the BUD form, so I'm going to answer them. After I answer these questions, I'll go back to the salary template and show you how the retirement feeds over. Okay. Can you provide us an update on the Kentucky Spirit Ode local health department? At this time, I cannot give you anything on that. I have not heard anything in a while. So if you need that question answered, you really need to send an email to Ron Horstman and ask him that. I'm sorry. I don't know anything on it. I think that is all the questions that we have. I'm going to close out of this bud form and show you how the retirement goes over to the salary template. It goes, the 50,000 I keyed in on the bud form feeds over to the salary template and reduces your fringe benefits so that it can isolate that. That is all that we have as far as the technical components for the budget review. As you all know, we sent out that survey to find out what you all wanted, what kind of budget training you wanted, and this is what the majority of you asked for. As Jenny said earlier, Randy Gooch with CADA is going to be doing a more hands-on training. Everyone that answered the survey saying they wanted hands-on training, he has contacted. He emailed everybody yesterday. So if you did not get an email and you want that hands-on training, then please contact Randy Gooch and he will get that set up for you. But as always, if you need any help additionally from the technical training here today, please contact your local health financial analyst or use your best resources, which is your other health department financial people and your directors. We're all in this together, so anybody would be willing to help you if you're new or we know we only do this once a year, so it's a struggle to get it all done and everything. So please let us know. You will be getting an email with a short survey to complete it timely as we are trying to obtain the license to do GoToWebinar. This was a test to use the GoToWebinar. Hopefully, I know I liked it better than ITV. It didn't seem like anybody was being cut off or anything. So please answer that survey, and based upon the results of that survey, we might be able to get the license and we can use GoToWebinar all the time. So please respond back to that. That is all that we have. So if you have any questions, please ask them now. And we have another question. We received a spreadsheet file to plan for 760 in prior years, not required this year. I have asked that question and I didn't include the MCH spreadsheet because they didn't send me an updated one and I was afraid to go ahead and send it out. But I have had a call into them to ask them about that. So if there is a spreadsheet that is required for you to submit, we will get that out to you as soon as they contact me and let me know. Or program staff will be sending it to you or whatever. But I was afraid to go ahead and send what they gave me last year just in case something had changed. So at this time, you don't have to, they're not linked to the other templates. So we will let you know. If you don't hear anything, then you don't have to do anything more. If there's no other questions, that is all that we have. And please contact us if you come up with any more questions. Thank you all, and y'all have a great day. Okay, there is one other.
Oh, great job.